Hi, I'm Dr. Joseph Marbach. At Georgian Court University, we're committed to educating the public about the importance of higher education and its impact on our communities. That's why we're proud to support the important educational programming produced by the Caucus Educational Corporation.
State of Affairs with Steve Adubato is brought to you from the Agnes Veris NJTV studio at 2 Gateway. Funding has been provided by Georgian Court University, Englewood Health, Horizon Blue Cross Blue Shield of New Jersey, New Jersey Resources, New Jersey Sharing Network, dedicated to saving lives through organ and tissue donation, NJM Insurance Group, and by Adler Aphasia Center, helping stroke and brain injury survivors recover their speech. Promotional support provided by AM 970 The Answer and by Jaffe Communications, where business, media, and government converge in New Jersey.
Welcome to State of Affairs. I'm Steve Adubato. Once again, we are coming to you from the Agnes Veris NJTV studio in beautiful Brick City, Newark, New Jersey. It happens to be a rainy day out there today, but I was going to say there are sunny things to talk about, but that whole thing didn't work. We have some challenging things to talk about with our good friend Greg Lalevee, who's business manager, International Union of Operating Engineers, Local 825, which is, help folks understand what that is, Greg.
7,100 men and women who operate heavy construction equipment, work on transportation infrastructure. We also maintain and fix equipment. We also mine aggregates.
I don't know what aggregates are, but that's a whole other story.
Rock, sand. So
why don't you say that? But you know what's interesting? Our colleagues at ROI-NJ, great publication with really interesting news. There was a feature story on you and your colleagues and some others in this industry who are modernizing and dealing with robotics in a different way. Talk about why that's so important.
Well, artificial intelligence, mechanization, and robotics is about to take over our industry. As operators of machines, we see it coming into our view every day. There's GPS control on bulldozers and excavators. There's sophisticated computers on cranes. So we're building an educational platform so that we can teach our current members how to master the technology, and as we bring in new members and apprentices, that we dovetail them into what the technology of the day will
Dramatically changes the industry?
It completely
changes. Are there more jobs, fewer jobs, or different jobs?
It's going to be different jobs. We think about the same number, but over the 122 years of the operating engineers, we saw the changes from steam to diesel, and then we saw the changes of cable manipulation of machines to hydraulics. But this is the most dramatic change we'll ever see because, as everybody knows, technology changes so rapidly. So we want to make sure we have the platform to change with it.
By the way, if you want to, very often what we do here in public television, we tell you about something you want to find out more. Our team will put up the ROI-NJ website. It happens to be on the November 5th, 2018 edition of ROI. It's a feature story on robotics and technology. How about this? You and I talk a lot offline about this quote-unquote gateway tunnel. Where are we and what is the problem? Is it simply money?
Well, it's coming down to everybody deciding what they can put in the game.
What is it? Let everybody know why. What is it? Why does it matter?
Well, the Gateway Tunnel is the tunnels from New York to New Jersey. It carries 200,000 passengers a day, 450 trains between Newark and Penn Station. It's 13% of Manhattan's workforce lives in northern New Jersey along the rail lines. The amount of the GDP is about 20% of the U.S. GDP that travels along there, and the tunnels are 110 years old.
We don't have the capacity anymore.
We don't have the capacity, and the capacity we do have is aging and in need of repair.
Okay. Donald Trump says what about this?
Well, originally there was a deal as Governor Christie had left office. It was between New Jersey, New York, and the Obama administration.
Sharing expense.
Yes, and President Trump said there was no deal in writing, so he didn't acknowledge the deal. So we're kind of back at the table. Since then, Governor Murphy, I think, has made a big move, putting up bonding for the Portal Bridge component of the project. So hopefully this will get some forward momentum.
If it happens, what happens?
Well, if it happens, it means property values in northern New Jersey That's one of the most important components of making sure that we maintain mobility into Manhattan for people to get to work. It means lots and lots of jobs for our people. It's major, major work, but it's necessary and it's critical to the economy.
Greg, one of the other things that has come up, and by the way, let me disclose, I just started a series of leadership and communication seminars for Greg's organization, full disclosure. There's something else that you've been very outspoken on. And it's like, look, we got this transportation trust fund. We raised the gas tax to put dollars into long-term infrastructure projects, right? Capital investment. And is the money being, quote, diverted into New Jersey Transit, who has massive problems? Is that the thing you're concerned about?
Well, the concern is there's $511 million going in from the Transportation Trust Fund into New Jersey Transit.
What's wrong with that?
Well, the law had been that there was a cap on what could be used for salaries. It was 13% or $208 million a year. But the language in this last budget said without limitation when it came to the caps. So we're concerned about how much is going to go into transit and where. So we're looking forward to annual audits that show us where that goes.
Let's break this down outside of the Beltway, if you will. Let's get out of the weeds and ask this question. If the dollars get diverted or moved from the Transportation Trust Fund for capital, road, bridges, projects, to New Jersey Transit, who has serious problems and everybody acknowledges it, what happens to the roads, bridges, and capital construction projects?
We don't get to fix them as fast as we otherwise would. We lose opportunity for federal matching funds. We typically get a 1-to-1 from Washington, so
$500 there, $1 here.
Yeah, so $500 million is $1 billion in capital construction projects.
I mean, if New Jersey doesn't put up the capital construction bucks, the feds don't put it up either.
Exactly.
People should care about this outside of your industry.
Absolutely. You know, we just went through an election, federal election, where much of the talk was how New Jersey doesn't get its fair share back from Washington. The one place that we typically did get it was in transportation dollars. And if we squander an opportunity to get our fair share of transportation dollars, our ranking's only going to get worse from the bad ranking we already have.
Okay, final question on this. To what degree is the New Jersey congressional delegation, which now after the election in the fall of 2018, has a virtually, I mean, Democrats virtually control all of the seats, I believe, except for one. I think it's Chris Smith's, the only Republican seat. Does that make a difference if the Democrats, quote, control the lower house on this issue? Or is it the president and the U.S. Senate, which is Republican, they don't want it, they're not doing it, and that's it?
Well, transportation's always been a bipartisan issue. You know, it's been
back to the Eisenhower administration.
Always, and it's been that way historically. But when you look at the 11th congressional district, which relies so much on mass transit to get to Manhattan.
11th, excuse me, I believe that's the Mikey Sherrill district.
Right.
She's new, as we do this, the congressperson-elect. Go ahead.
And while she was urging her voters the Sunday before Election Day to get out and vote, one of the things she said to them is, maybe vote in the morning Tuesday if you're going to Manhattan. Let's not rely on New Jersey Transit right now.
Meaning she was worried about them coming back and being able to vote.
And I think that's a very telling remark for now an incoming Congresswoman, but good in the sense that I think that she'll be very much a hawk on this issue.
Greg Lalevee is business manager of an organization called Operating Engineers Local 825. It's an international union. How many members?
400,000 nationally.
Just a few jobs. And the industry is changing dramatically as we speak, technology, robotics, et cetera.
And we're looking forward to meeting that challenge and being able to master our craft as we have for 120 years.
Thank you, Greg.
Thank you, Steve.
Appreciate it, buddy.
It's great
Stay
to
right
be
there.
Here. Thank you.
All right. This is State of Affairs. We are at the Agnes Veris studio at NJTV. We'll be right back right after this.
To see more State of Affairs with Steve Adubato programs, visit us online at stateofaffairsnj.org. If you would like to express an opinion, email us at info@caucusnj.org. Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Steve Adubato, PhD. And follow us on Twitter at Steve Adubato.
State of Affairs is pleased to welcome for the first time, will not be the last, Zakiya Smith Ellis, New Jersey Secretary of Higher Education. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Describe your role.
So the Secretary of Higher Education is supposed to provide advice to the governor and really to the state as a whole on the direction of higher education, policy for higher education, and making sure that our students are successful while they're in college.
Yeah. Affordability, huge issue, right?
It is a huge issue,
Break it
especially
down.
in New Jersey. New Jersey actually has a higher tuition rate than many other states when it comes to going to college. People pay more here than they might otherwise, and that's a challenge because we want more people to go to college, and if they're scared by the price, then it can be daunting for people.
But, Madam Secretary, is that what you go by?
Oh, whatever.
Let me ask you this, Secretary. The gap, the racial equity gap as it relates to those who are going, who are not going, who can't afford higher ed. Talk about it.
Yeah, so we've got a lot of great things going on in the state. Great institutions of higher education, actually overall high completion rates, more people graduate here than in other places. But when you break it down by race and income, a lot of people who are from lower income backgrounds can't afford to go to college. And when you look at who goes to college, we have a lot lower college going rate in the racial minority groups and in people who are first in their family to go to college or lower income areas. So we've got to
What do we do to break
close
that down? What do we do to improve it, if you will?
I think we've got to increase affordability. So we've got to improve affordability, and then we've got to acknowledge it, right? We've got to go to places. I used to be a college counselor, so I used to go to high schools in East Boston and help a lot of immigrant kids, a lot of people who don't really have any experience with college, and you've got to help them understand what is it to go to college, what does it mean? It's just a whole culture around going to college.
You know, it's interesting. We've had people on who have very successful entrepreneurs. Gary Vee, check him out. He's an entrepreneur who's out there. We had him on our other show, one-on-one. He's like, you know, college is overrated. Because you spend all that money, you got 100 grand, if not more, in loans. Why don't you just go out and be an entrepreneur? Use that time, use that money, use that energy. Stop with the studying. It's not for everyone, you say?
Yeah. So I think we know that there's an increasing, the way our economy is going, it requires people to have more than a high school diploma now. Like, you know, my dad grew up in Akron, Ohio, and back then, you know, you went to high school, you got a great job working in manufacturing and, you know, tire companies, and those jobs are just not here anymore. The kinds of jobs that are growing are the kinds of things that require you to kind of use more of your brain than your hands, or a skill. But it has to be something that shows that you know something beyond just the high school diploma, and that's just the way the economy is changing. So
But is the higher ed curriculum designed to do that enough?
Yeah, well, I think we need to do more of that. We need to do more of keeping people in college engaged in the world of work. People should have internships, they should have opportunities to understand what it's like to work, but also the value of kind of just going to college. And it doesn't have to be a 4-year degree, it can be community college. It doesn't
Can be
have to
two?
Yeah, it can be a 2-year degree. It could be a credential, an apprenticeship. So I think of college as kind of anything beyond high school, post-secondary, anything beyond high school is really what we need more of today.
We're talking to the New Jersey Secretary of Higher Education, Zakiya Smith Ellis. What is 65 by 25?
So it's the state's post-secondary attainment goal, the percentage of people in the state, adults, who have a post-secondary credential. So something beyond high school, whether it's a certificate or an associate's degree or a bachelor's degree. New Jersey's higher than many other states. Only places are like DC and Massachusetts that are higher than New Jersey currently, but we're still around 50% right now. So you think about it, only about half the people in the state have anything beyond a high school diploma.
We've had several presidents, leaders of higher ed institutions who talk about these issues with us. And by the way, go on our website at steveadubato.org. You can just put in higher education discussion. You'll see some of those conversations. Many of them talk about the brain drain. They talk about how many really, really good students who graduate from high school in the state of New Jersey. I believe more than any other state in the nation, we lose many of those kids to other places. Now we have, our kids who are, 14 and 16 right now, they start talking about other places. And I'm like, hey, what about? And I'll start naming places in New Jersey. And that's me. I'm a Jersey guy doing Jersey TV. The question is, it's not about me or my kids, but what is the struggle to keep our kids here in New Jersey to go to school?
You're right, New Jersey has one of the highest rates of, students leaving the state to go to college.
Is that the brain drain?
It is. That's part of it. I mean, now you could also attract people from other states. There are some states that do that. They get people from other places to come here. But New Jersey's high schools are fantastic. So the K-12 schools, everybody from every other state wants New Jersey kids. They recruit from New Jersey to go to Maryland, to go to Penn State. They come.
So we have the smartest kids.
You've got the smartest kids, and we got to keep them here. But everybody else wants them. So that's part of the issue is that we've got such wonderful kids here that other people want them. So
is that a marketing thing, Secretary? That schools need to make themselves more attractive?
I think we have to sell the schools a little bit to help the students understand, what if you're from South Jersey, maybe go up to Montclair State and see what is that they have? What are the programs that they have? But also, I will say it's an affordability issue. Because if you're looking at an out-of-state institution and an in-state institution, and the out-of-state place is not that much more expensive than your in-state place, it makes that decision a little bit easier.
But isn't it fair to say that the level of state funding to higher education is a huge part of this? Many of those same presidents we have had on from colleges and universities in the state said, look, state funding to higher education continues to either be flat at best and to be decreased in many cases. What are the plans of the Murphy administration to change that?
Yeah. The state funding is an issue, and as the institutions have grown, that funding per student has declined. So, it's one thing to get, let's just say it's $100 million when you have 10,000 students, and those aren't the ratios.
Right.
But then if you have, 20,000 students, that same amount of money goes less far. So that's part of the issue is the funding per student, and we don't really have any rational basis for funding right now. There's no funding formula, and that's one thing I've
What's
talked
this thing
about.
called outcomes-based funding?
Outcomes-based funding is one way that some states are trying to improve college completion, get more people to graduate, close gaps in who graduates in terms of racial minorities and others. So by rewarding those institutions that do a good job on things that are priorities for the state, you're able to kind of pay for what you want.
Before I let you out here, you're from Georgia originally.
I am.
You said that New Jersey is a very friendly state.
It is.
Make the case.
Well, I've been more welcomed in New Jersey. The South has a way of saying that they're welcoming and not really being that way. I've been more welcomed here than almost any place I've ever lived.
Is that right?
Yes, absolutely. We live in Medford, and people there have just been, our neighbors are great. It's been a really nice place.
Well, we've been speaking to the Secretary of Higher Education in the state. New Jersey has a significant number of it's private independents?
Yes, independent
publics?
colleges. Yeah,
right?
Colleges. We've got 56, well, depending on how you count. We also have a lot of yeshivas. So there's, if you include those into the mix, there's over 80 colleges in the state.
Not to mention the county community colleges as well.
Yeah,
That system's huge.
Yeah, there are 19 community colleges.
And they all fall within your jurisdiction?
Yeah, I mean, I work with all of them. I don't tell them what to do, but I work with all of them, yeah.
Well, Zakiya Smith Ellis is New Jersey Secretary of Higher Education. I want to thank you for joining us on State of Affairs.
Thank you.
You have an open invitation.
I would love to come.
You got it.
Anytime.
Stay with us. We'll be right back right after this.
To see more State of Affairs with Steve Adubato programs, visit us online at stateofaffairsnj.org. If you would like to express an opinion, email us at info@caucusnj.org. Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Steve Adubato, PhD. And follow us on Twitter at Steve Adubato.
Yes, we finally had him in the House. We have him here. He is State Senator Michael Doherty. He is a member of the Judiciary and the Education Committee. Good to see you, Senator.
Good to be here, Steve.
You are one of the most outspoken, interesting, compelling members of the legislature. You are not just someone who calls himself conservative, but you border on somewhat libertarian.
Absolutely.
Describe that.
Well, I think libertarian believes in small government, believes in the Constitution, and the vision of our founding fathers that the government should not be doing everything, that it should be constrained by the Constitution. And it drives me crazy when I hear elected officials say, democracy, democracy, democracy. We don't have a democracy. We have a republic.
That's right.
And a constitutional republic is much different than a democracy.
Steve Adubato here with a senator who happens to be a Republican, leaning libertarian, Michael Doherty. Let me ask you, believe in the Constitution. You're one of the first people, in fact, I think you were the first person to support President Trump of note in the state of New Jersey. Do you believe the president believes in the Constitution in the way you believe in the Constitution? And if so, make the case.
Yeah, I think he does support the Constitution.
Including separation
support
of
the Constitution of the United States. For one thing, I think, let's go back to why Donald Trump was elected. I think the reason he was elected is that Americans haven't had a pay raise since 1970. The bankers in 2008, instead of being sent to jail, were bailed out by the American taxpayers. And George Bush lied us into wars in the Middle East, right, with the weapons of mass destruction that turned out to be bogus. So Americans, sick and tired of the rigged system, sick and tired of not getting a pay raise in 50 years, bailing out the bankers, sending our jobs overseas, fighting these stupid foreign wars. And Donald Trump was speaking to the American people. And that's why he won in 2016.
But you've also been critical of the president in terms of his foreign policy, specifically as it relates to Syria. And you're saying, wait a minute. That's, I read Paul Mulshine's column. You can check out Paul at NJ.com and the Star Ledger. Molstein wrote about you saying, hey, wait a minute, Donald Trump, that's not why I support it. I support you to stay out of there.
Well,
Did I have that wrong?
Well, no, I think he's done certainly a lot better. I mean, you look at the Obama administration.
Can we just deal with the Trump administration?
Well, I think that you have to contrast, though. You know, Obama destroyed Libya with the help of Hillary Clinton, and then we've destroyed Syria. And Donald Trump, the entire time, we had all the candidates on the Democrat side. Hillary Clinton said, hey, I want to shoot down Russian planes. We had the Republicans like Jeb Bush saying, how dare you attack my brother's foreign policy in the Middle East? This is keeping us safe. And Donald Trump said, that's a lot of bunk. Why are we destroying these countries in the Middle East? What are we getting out of it? So yes, Donald Trump has, in my opinion, that the missile strikes into Syria before we got all the evidence. I think those chemical attacks with the white helmets, I think a lot of folks, a lot of reporters are showing that the white helmets don't really have clean hands, that they sort of do these events. And so Donald Trump is certainly much better than our previous presidents that were in love with starting all these wars in the Middle East.
To that point, we're talking to State Senator Michael Doherty, outspoken, thoughtful, provocative on so many levels. I enjoy talking to him. But I got to ask you something. You also serve this country.
Yes.
Okay. With distinction. Thank you for your service. We're doing this program right after Veterans Day. When the president says that, quote, he knows more than the generals, when the president says that we should no longer be engaged with NATO the way we are, when the president says what he does about foreign policy, and one more thing, his seemingly inability or unwillingness to be critical of Vladimir Putin, who, let's just say, is not rooting for us as Americans, I've got to believe on some level, even though you agree with the president on a lot of issues, you say, wait a minute, what's up here? No?
Well, what was the advice that President Eisenhower gave in January of 1961 going out the door? He said, here's a man who would spend his entire life in the military.
That's right.
Raised to the highest levels, right? Oversaw the World War II operation, then became president.
Did he say beware of the generals?
He said beware of the military industrial complex. And to a large extent, that's taken over our country. The Gulf of Tonkin that led to the increase of Vietnam participation. It ended up to be, it never happened.
And the Lyndon
in
Johnson
retrospect.
administration.
Yes,
well,
and so we've seen this time and again in American history. So I think Donald Trump, hey, the generals were whispering in Lyndon Johnson's ear back in the 60s, hey, we were attacked in the Gulf of Tonkin. We got to go in and set things straight. And it turned out we lost 58,000 men
right.
for what?
Beyond what you're saying, which has a lot of credibility, the inability and the unwillingness of the president to be critical of Vladimir Putin and Russia for, and I don't know what the Mueller investigation is going to find. That's not what I'm talking about. But meddling in our elections. Does it bother you that the president doesn't seem more exercised about that?
I think...
Because you respect our system of elections.
Well, absolutely. We have a constitution and we put civilians in charge of our military. And so at the end of the day, the president is the commander-in-chief. But as a young man, when I was in my early 20s, stationed over in Germany at the height of the Cold War from 86 to 89, there was a real threat. It was called the Soviet Union. And the Soviet Union and the Warsaw Pact was all the way up to the West German border. As a matter of fact, they built a wall to keep their people in. That's right. And I was actually at a nuclear artillery unit. So we spent a lot of time in the field, a lot of time at night. You're thinking about, are we going to do our job? We were going to do our job and nuke the Soviets if they invaded the West. All of that, Steve, has gone away. The Warsaw Pact has receded. It doesn't exist anymore. And we made commitments at the end of the Cold War, George Bush, that we were not going to advance NATO to the east.
So Russia's not our enemy anymore?
I think we should try to get along with Russia. Russia has a country that's the size of Italy in its GDP. And if you take a look at the map, where NATO and Warsaw Pact was at the height of the Cold War and where Russia is now, NATO has actually done the expansion.
Let me bring you back home real quick. Governor Murphy's economic policy, go ahead, describe it. Why are you smiling when I ask you that? Go ahead, describe it.
Because it's so loaded, I don't know where you're going.
Well, where do you think, okay, what do you think of the governor's policy to say we're the innovation state? Let's attract people who want to come here.
Well, I think technology is great, technological advancement. We were the home of the pharmaceutical industry, continue to be for a century, and I think it's great that we should be.
What would make us more competitive?
having a better tax structure for companies. Time and again, they talk about the high regulatory burden of New Jersey, the unpredictability, and the high taxes. Everybody knows Quick Check. Quick Check's everywhere. It has great coffee. And in my hometown, they said it was so difficult just to get a Quick Check built with all the regulatory burden, whether they could hook up to the sewer system or build a septic system. They said it was the most expensive Quick Check they've built anywhere, and they doubt they're going to be building any more in the area. So this is what New Jersey state government does. It drives businesses away. They're just going to, right now, we're in western New Jersey.
A few seconds, go ahead.
So the Lehigh Valley, it's doing great. Why? Because they learned the lesson of the steel industry collapse, and now they welcome business. New Jersey could look at what the Lehigh Valley's doing and get those businesses coming here.
You've been listening to State Senator Michael Doherty, who's been serving this legislature for how long?
Since 2002.
And I want to thank you for joining us on State of Affairs, and all the best.
Thank you, Steve.
Stay right there. I'm Steve Adubato. Let's continue the conversation. Listen, talk to us about what the senator just talked about. Write to me at Steve Adubato, and I promise you we'll see you next week.
State of Affairs with Steve Adubato is a production of the Caucus Educational Corporation, celebrating over 25 years of broadcast excellence. State of Affairs with Steve Adubato is brought to you from the Agnes Veris NJTV studio at 2 Gateway. Funding has been provided by Georgian Court University, Englewood Health, Horizon Blue Cross Blue Shield of New Jersey, New Jersey Resources, New Jersey Sharing Network, NJM Insurance Group, and by Adler Aphasia Center.
It feels like I've opened my eyes again.